always seen in American policy. In other words, it's the same movie they keep playing over and over again. We know this movie, so we know how to confront and deal with it.
Now, he's right. They've seen this movie play out before. They've been under sanctions, and they've built an economy that is purposely designed to resist sanctions, to be able to withstand that pressure. Now, when it comes to that economic lifeline, what is really important to remember is that the people are the ones who bear the brunt of this. It's very unlikely to change the government's behavior, but the people who are living in Iran, the businesses in Iran, those are the places where we're going to see the impact of these sanctions. Sanctions are very, very destructive to civilian populations. The Lancet had a very big study published last year that showed that almost 500,000 deaths annually have been a result of sanctions globally. So not just Iran, but across the world. So that is where you're going to see that economic lifeline being cut really impact Iran, not in the government's behavior, but in how the people are able to live their lives, Polo.
Leila Gorgos, well, thank you so much for that reporting this morning. And as Leila just mentioned, that this next round of sanctions unlikely to change Tehran's way of thinking. But if you look at oil prices, well, it's already having at least some impact, as you see Brent crude oil, which is essentially the global standard, down a little over 1% there, while the WTI crude oil now at $85 a barrel, also down as well, certainly as traders prepare for a potential shortage in supply. So we'll certainly see how that impact is felt after that announcement from the White House in the coming hours. And the Trump administration is also blaming Canada for the collapse of trade talks, with the Transportation Secretary accusing Canada of, quote, taking advantage of the United States. Canada walked away from the negotiations late Friday, as you may recall. Prime Minister Mark Carney said that the U.S. had introduced last-minute demands that would have harmed his nation's economy. Well, he's now promising to match the United States' new tariffs on Canadian goods, dollar for dollar, he said. Well, despite the standoff, White House officials insist that they do expect talks to resume soon.
We want fairness for the American worker. And some of our best friends are the worst offenders that treat us the worst. And the fact that we provide their security for them and they take advantage of us, I think President Trump was the first one to go, you know what, that's not the kind of relationship that friends should have. And so the president's calling them out. I think you're going to see Mark Carney come to the table very, very quickly, because it's going to be devastating for his country.
CNN's Julia Benbrook explaining how the trade talks went wrong.
Taking a step back here, throughout the week, President Donald Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, as well as top trade officials from both countries, had been in direct contact. That was after Trump put a 3-day pause on the tariffs. Both sides had expressed optimism that they would be able to come to an agreement before that new deadline. In fact, hours before everything fell through, Trump said that things were moving along with Canada and that the United States and Canada should be able to come to a deal. There is now, though, that 50% tariff on roughly $20 billion worth of Canadian goods, and Canada has vowed to match that tariff dollar for dollar starting September 8th. This all just injects more uncertainty when it comes to the relationship between these two countries, and as of right now, there is no sense of when the two sides might come back to the table. Over the weekend, while speaking with CNN's Dana Bash, former Vice President Mike Pence said that he hopes that the two sides are able to come to the negotiating table again soon, adding that the last thing Americans need right now is a trade war with Canada. And some important context to add there. During Trump's first term, when Pence was serving as his vice president, Trump touted the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement as a fair and balanced trade deal. He has in recent months, though, decided not to renew it. That doesn't mean that it goes away entirely, but that they try and maintain the status quo and that some of these bilateral conversations on specifics continue. The latest, though, is that these recent talks with Canada have failed. Both sides said that last-minute changes to the deal really unraveled a delicate balance that was struck in recent days. We have reached out to the White House to see if there are any plans to start these conversations again. Julia Benbrook, CNN, the White House.
And as we wait to hear back from the White House, I want to give you a look at where U.S. futures are ahead of the start of the trading week. You see them across the board, down slightly, of course, this after a weekend packed full of uncertainty and now a potential looming trade war between the U.S. and Canada, as people on both sides of the border certainly hoping for a quick resolution and a deal between those two countries. And I did speak with a political scientist, Benjamin Rad, on that very same theme. I asked him where he saw this trade war going after Mark Carney's promise to potentially respond with tariffs of his own.
So both sides have tremendous incentives to wrap this up. This is not something that I see is going to be long-term and enduring. And really the issue is one of language, not one of actual terms in terms of finances. You have the United States, inserting language, or at least a president made some comments about the Canadians giving up the French culture or language related to Quebec, and, cultural matters that go really beyond the financial terms that we see. And then the Canadians have taken an issue with some of the automotive provisions that were in the agreement. At the end of the day, these are two countries that are really bound not just by border, but by massive codependence on trade, on imports, on exports. And so it's just a matter of time before they work this through.
Yeah, so consumers in both countries are listening to you and hoping that will in fact be a short-term unraveling that we experienced on Friday. So what are, in your view, some of the off-ramp options?
Well, at this point, from the Canadian standpoint, is one of the legality of what the president can do. We saw at a Supreme Court ruling earlier this year, Chief Justice Roberts, in his majority opinion, basically saying that the president's abilities to institute these sweeping tariffs are limited by something that's called the major questions doctrine. That's something that Congress has the power to do and that is not explicitly delegated to the executive branch. So President Trump's options here might be limited, and I think the Canadians understand the legal implications of what he's trying to do, and that would give an off-ramp to really go back to the table and work through the rhetoric and not the numbers, because again, it's really the rhetoric, the terms, and not the numbers themselves. And then the other issue is this language about Canada being the 51st state, or imposing conditions about use of French language and culture. I think these are things that can easily be worked through and moved and pushed aside for the goals of reaching a broader deal.
A wildfire that's uncontained and growing quickly near Reno, Nevada has prompted widespread evacuations. The Hawk Fire, as it's known, has grown to more than 15,000 acres. Already nearly 90,000 people have been told to leave their homes or prepare to leave as crews try to get the flames under control. Now, residents are saying that they are shocked by the scale of this fire and are scrambling to find places to go and seek shelter.
When we came through, it looked like a movie scene. Like, you don't expect to see something like that in real life. And then, we looked over the overpass and we could see, the top of the flames and then the smoke overhead.
It's just really scary right now. We've never had anything before. There was no hotel room at all.
And the worst could still be ahead according to the forecast. Reno's fire chief says that wind gusts and unusually high nighttime temperatures are currently making this fire behave erratically and very difficult to contain. Forecasters believe those windy conditions will get even worse later this afternoon, with wind gusts as high as 25 miles per hour. And stronger winds are expected Thursday. Officials there in the region say that the fire appears to have been caused by human activity, but there's no indication that it was intentional setting. Hawaii being hit with more rainfall after being lashed by Hurricane Lala just last week. The National Hurricane Center says the tropical depression Moki is now passing just south of the islands. At the Big Island and Maui, they have already seen some rainfall on Sunday afternoon, but parts of the islands could see anywhere from 3 to 6 inches going into Monday. Maximum sustained winds now near 35 miles per hour with stronger wind gusts in the storm. And it is expected to continue weakening potentially as it moves westward over the next few days. But still, the Hurricane Center is warning that downpours could cause life-threatening flooding and mudslides in places that were already flooded by Hurricane Lala on the Big Island. Well, still to come this hour, one of the top Democrats in Congress says that he's pushing the Trump administration to make transformational change to solve the affordability crisis. More on this conversation with Donald Trump's son-in-law will return. Plus, the backlash against data centers is now mounting ahead of the U.S. midterms. Now look at how a public outcry in one Georgia community has helped cancel plans for a massive project.
I'm a big believer in
CNN is learning about a private meeting between President Trump's son-in-law and the Democratic leader of the U.S. House. A source is telling CNN that Jared Kushner and Hakeem Jeffries met in New York several weeks ago, and we are told that they discussed ways for the White House and Democrats to collaborate on key issues. They include immigration, housing availability, and also the cost of living. And this meeting comes as Democrats eye the possibility of winning a House majority in the upcoming midterms. Jeffries is considered the front-runner to become House Speaker if that happens, and he told CNN that Democrats are holding the Trump administration's feet to the fire to fix the affordability crisis, and also reminding them that it is not a hoax. And we are just weeks away from the U.S. midterm elections that will determine the balance of power on Capitol Hill. And one issue has taken many candidates by surprise, the creation of AI data centers. It is drawing the outrage of voters across the country, and also politicians are tapping into that backlash, with some Republicans now shifting their positions to oppose these facilities, even though President Trump is making clear that he's all for that.
If a Republican's against the data center, that's okay with me. If I were a community, I would want the data center. It means jobs, it means income, and it means lower taxes.
CNN's Rafael Romo looks at how some cities are fighting back against the construction of these centers.
Data centers have prompted a national debate that has been raging for a while, a debate that is heating up as we approach the midterm elections. Here in Georgia, the city of Lovejoy, population 13,000, considered a proposal that would have included a 15-building, 403-acre data center campus that would have been located between two schools and several residential neighborhoods. The proposal generated such a public outcry that city officials and the developer canceled the data center plan.
We don't need something like that within our community right here. Yeah, it's come across as a very negative thing. I think many people are against it, and I'm one of those people as well.
This is a place to have families go, not data centers.
We're not against data centers. We're against data centers in our communities. That's not what we came here for.
Lovejoy Mayor Marcy Fluellen told me she's happy that consensus was reached on what's best for her residents.
Accomplished, that's the way I feel. For the residents, they had a chance to have their voices heard, which is very important for such a subject as large as and important as data centers.
when you heard from residents.
The most common concerns that the residents had were the environmental impacts, water consumption, power consumption, air and noise pollution.
A recent Gallup poll showed 71% of Americans oppose the construction of data centers in their communities. About a dozen states have proposed data center building moratoriums, and New York has recently enacted one. 4 other states have taken up similar bills, but they failed to get enacted. In spite of the opposition, Shelley Palmer, professor of advanced media at Syracuse University, says data centers are here to stay.
The velocity of data is increasing and will always increase. There's no version of the world where there's less data tomorrow than there is today. Every time you pick up your smartphone, every time you sit down at a computer, every time you do practically anything, swipe a credit card, data centers are involved. In order to make data actionable, to turn it into something tangible and valuable, you must process it. And that happens in a data center.
The United States had more than 5,400 data centers at the end of last year, according to Stanford University's AI Index report. That number is set to nearly double. Data research center Aterio found AI companies have announced plans for nearly 4,000 additional data centers. Rafael Romo, CNN Atlanta.
Well, the first ever Indy car race in the U.S. Capitol is now in the books. President Trump, along with thousands of fans on hand as they watch Kyle Kirkwood win the Freedom 250 Grand Prix on Sunday. This special event commemorated the nation's 250th birthday and it saw racers zipping past some of Washington's most iconic landmarks. And the race follows an announcement by First Lady Melania Trump that she's teaming up with IndyCar and Fox Corporation to provide $2 million in scholarships, and their goal is to provide that support to young adults moving out of foster care. CNN's Brian Todd was at the race, and he's got this report.
So a successful conclusion to the Freedom 250 Grand Prix won by Kyle Kirkwood. They're breaking this track down already here in the aftermath of the race. Some of the equipment being lifted and then loaded to be taken out, but it's going to take a while. This was turn 4, one of the tightest turns of the race, and this came down here on 7th Street, then they would take a left on Independence Avenue. We'll show you some of the grandstands. These were packed during the race. That grandstand was full of fans, and then to your left there, you've got the suites, which each cost about $200,000 to $250,000 for each suite. There are about 80 suites total, and we were told they were sold out as well. The organizers said they expected about 100,000 people each day of this race, Saturday and on Sunday. We talked to several racegoers about their experience overall. I'm here with Liz Eustace and Chris Richardson, race fans here. You've been to several races, you said. Okay. Liz, you have not? Okay. Got to get your impression. First time, how do you like it?
I saw the warm-up and it was so cool. I didn't think, I was kind of like, oh, they're just cars running, but the speed they're going, it was so freaking cool. And I got goosebumps, like I was shaky. It was really cool.
And now, you're a veteran, Chris. You've been to some of these races. What do you think? What stands out to you about this particular one?
It's a road course, and that's always fun. You know, the road course on my own home roads. I definitely love that. And just having a point of reference for how fast they're going on these city streets is insane.
Now, one of the biggest questions coming out of this is, could this happen here again? The mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, has said she hopes that they can bring it back here. But Ms. Bowser is actually going to be out of office as of January. She's serving out the last part of her term. So let's see if the city powers that be here can coordinate with IndyCar and with Penske Racing to maybe bring this race back. I think by most measures it was a success. We talked to so many people coming here who said they had a really good fan experience. What we are told, though, is it's going to, all told, it's about a 2-month operation to set everything up, which they started in mid to late July. And in order to break everything down, it's going to take probably at least until the end of the first week in September. So all told, about a 2-month operation to set everything up and then break everything down. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Russia is gearing up to send hundreds of thousands more troops into its war with Ukraine. Coming up, we'll be taking a look at the diplomatic push that he's hoping will bolster Ukraine's defenses. Plus, the White House saying that it will launch the single greatest financial offensive ever against Iran. I had a look into how the economic front of this war could be fought between Washington and Tehran.
My little girl loves it.
Live in New York, we are closely watching the British Prime Minister Andy Burnham's visit to Ukraine. He's just arrived in the capital city of Kyiv. This is his first trip abroad as Prime Minister. And while in Kyiv, Mr. Burnham will be meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky. He will also be co-chairing his first meeting with the Coalition of the Willing, which is that group of countries that are working to bolster Ukraine's security and their defense. And this trip coincides with Ukraine's Independence Day. See, it was 35 years ago today that Kyiv voted to break with the Soviet Union. For more on this, I want to head over to CNN correspondent Nada Bashir, who's joining me live from London. Good morning to you, Nada. So it is mid-morning in Kyiv right now. Is there anything that's come out of this meeting so far as you watch it closely?
We are already hearing, of course, from the United Kingdom and Erdogan's first official visit as the new UK Prime Minister. Another boost in support from the United Kingdom when it comes to military support. Of course, that is something that President Zelensky has long been pushing for in Ukraine. We are learning that the UK has confirmed that it will allow for classified information regarding components for the development of long-range missiles to be shared with defense firm MBDA to allow for Ukraine to bolster its long-range missile capacity and capabilities in defending itself against Russian aggression. So this would be a significant boost for the Ukrainian military and of course for the efforts to defend crucially eastern Ukraine from other attacks. We have seen, of course, Russian attacks also boosting over the last few months, particularly targeting civilian areas. But this is something that President has been pushing for. But in addition to this boosted support from the United Kingdom, we are also learning on the occasion of Ukraine's independence of a further boost from the European Union as well, releasing a statement from the European Commission earlier this morning approving some 6.1 billion euros in new defence procurement for Ukraine. I can read you just a bit from that statement, saying the funding covers air and missile defence systems, missiles, ammunitions and radars, reaffirming Europe's commitment to supporting Ukraine's defence and resilience against Russia's ongoing aggression. But of course, while we are seeing this boost in support from the United Kingdom and from the European Union, we have heard from the Ukrainian president who spoke with some wide-ranging remarks on Sunday, but also calling out the United States, calling for more support on that, particularly when it comes to Ukraine's air defences and supporting the form of Patriot missile air defence systems. Zelensky highlighted, for example, the significant downward trend we have seen in the amount of Patriots being supplied by the United States to Ukraine, highlighting those figures. He says some 675 were supplied in 2020. That in comparison to a forecast of just 264 by the end of this year. And of course, we have seen these ballistic missile attacks being carried out by Russia, expanding and deepening as well into Ukraine, again having a disastrous impact on civilian infrastructure as well as civilian lives. Crucially, because those Patriot missiles would be essential and crucial in fending off such attacks. So that is something that, of course, Zelensky has highlighted, but he has also indicated that he is pushing for further talks with the United States to try to push forward some sort of route for the development of that military cooperation between the two. And as you mentioned, Paolo, we are expecting, according to Zelensky, to see those challenges faced by the Ukrainian military deepening as well. According to Zelensky's remarks, the Ukrainian military and intelligence service is expecting some further 300,000 Russian troops to be mobilized later this year as it attempts to complete its capture, according to Zelensky, of eastern Ukraine. So this will have a significant impact, of course, on Ukraine's ability to defend itself if indeed we see such a significant mobilization of Russian troops.
All right, Donna Bashir, thank you so much for closely following the British Prime Minister's visit there in Ukraine. To Iran now, it says that it will not hesitate to retaliate against the U.S. and its allies in response to the White House's threat of an economic war. Tehran warning that ships violating its transit rules in the Strait of Hormuz could be fined or maybe even seized. The country's security chief saying that it will target the interests of nearby countries cooperating with the United States. Also adding, quote, if they start such an action, we will not allow a single drop of oil to pass through the Persian Gulf. All of this as the U.S. Treasury Secretary is expected to announce new sanctions against Tehran in the coming hours. Let's get more perspective now, and I'm joined again by Fawaz Gerges. He's a professor of international relations at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Fawaz also the author of The Great Betrayal, The Struggle for Freedom and Democracy in the Middle East. Fawaz, as we wait for the announcement, Fawaz, from the White House, how do you think this expected new round of economic sanctions will or will not potentially impact the future negotiations in this conflict?
But I think most of us, the media, often focus on geopolitics and war and interstate relations. The media often really neglects the human dimension, the human aspect, the human suffering. The two wars launched by the United States and Israel on Iran in the past 1 year unprecedented. Skyrocketing in unemployment has made basic food items out of the reach of the 100 million Iranians. You have now critical infrastructure in Iran has been battered by the US and Israel wars in Iran. And the economic warfare announced by President Trump will most likely pauperize the Iranian people further than they have been, than they are. My take on it is, even though economic warfare will pauperize the Iranian people and break the backbone of the Iranian society, I doubt it very much whether the economic warfare that will be announced by the US Treasury Secretary today will really unseat the Iranian regimes or basically topple the Iranian regime, because for the simple reason Iran has been under one of the most significant economic sanctions by the United States in the past 47 years.
Yeah, and I think you heard some of our reporting too at the top of the hour, and making that point about those eventual impacts on those, as you point out, nearly 100 million Iranian civilians who are deeply hit by any sanctions. But we can't mention that enough. How incentivized then is Iran to give into any sort of Trump administration?
Well, I mean, I thought the whole idea behind President Trump's war against Iran was to empower the Iranian people. Go out and take charge of your own government was the first thing that President Trump said. Think of how many stories have been written about basically the question of liberation, enabling the Iranian people to stand up to be free. And here we are today. Who is suffering the most in Iran? Surely not the Islamic Republic of Iran. Surely not the Supreme National Security Council. Surely not the Iranian regime itself. Suffering the Iranian people, the ordinary, everyday Iranian people is suffering. And my take on it, what we need to understand is that even though President Trump blusters and says he will basically cripple the Iranian economy, I think what we need to take into account, what will Iran do? It's not just about what the United States will do, has been doing, even though the United States is the most powerful. My take on it as Iran's top national security council has just said, he warned that any state, any neighboring state that basically joins America's economic warfare against Iran will be an enemy state, and not even a drop of oil will reach the world from the Gulf. And further, and this is really a very important point, Iran's National Security Council member Mohsen Radai wondered on Iranian television whether Iran should build a nuclear weapon in light of the fact that the United States and Israel attacked Iran twice, despite the treaties and despite the diplomacy. So all in all, it seems to me, the reason why we are seeing this kind of big bubble about economic warfare, because I think the military fight, the military hostilities have failed to basically force Iran to surrender, have failed to push Iran to accept America's conditions, and that's why it's an alternative. It's a trial by error. But the big point, and this is a good thing, even though there's a great deal of suffering, I think economic warfare, the new strategy or supposedly strategy, will mean that the United States will not return to fighting in the foreseeable future. I think this is a very important point, that the all-out military hostilities have been basically now taken off the table, because they have not really, the wars have not really produced any major results. So economic warfare, the question on the table, who will blink first?
Right.
The Iranian regime or President Trump? We have to wait and see.
It's such an important distinction, Fawaz, that what comes with the economic warfare versus the strikes we've seen in months past, especially if the U.S. would set its sights on targets closer to civilian areas. We know the Iranian civilians have already been through so much, as you pointed out at the top. Fawaz Sturgis, grateful for your insight as always. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, still a lot more to get to in the coming next few minutes, including the U.S. accusing a sitting Mexican governor of aiding a drug cartel. Now he's stepping away from his post again. But will he ever face charges in the United States? We'll take a closer look when we come back.
Our right to reproductive health care is being stolen from us.
Of the Mexican state of Sinaloa, accused by the U.S. of aiding a drug cartel, has reversed his decision to return to his job, requesting instead an indefinite leave of absence. Ruben Rocha Moya announced his return on Friday after more than 3 months on leave following the announcement of his indictment on U.S. drug trafficking charges. But he quickly drew criticism for that decision from those in his own Morena party, including from Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. Rocha Moya continues to deny any wrongdoing and described the U.S. case as a politically motivated attack. Well, Sheinbaum's government has said that there was not enough evidence, even as they launched an investigation of their own. And the U.S. indictment fueled some tensions between the United States and Mexican government, and also marked a rare move by the U.S. to go after a sitting governor. Let's discuss more on that. I'm joined by Malcolm Beath. He's the author of The Last Narco, Inside the Hunt for El Chapo, the world's most wanted drug lord. Malcolm, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to you.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So when I got the news over the weekend, I mean, the first question that I had, in fact, going back to earlier this year when the indictment was announced, was will the governor of Sinaloa, Ruben Rocha Moya, actually ever see a U.S. courtroom in answer to these drug trafficking charges?
I think it's unlikely, and I think stepping down as governor does invite an investigation in Mexico. If he stayed, in power, he wouldn't be investigated. But it also takes the power away from the U.S. authorities and U.S. prosecutors, probably in New York, to actually bring their case against him.
Yeah, with him out of office, I also was wondering about the issue of diplomatic immunity, if this is maybe a protection that he has. I'm also wondering about just the nature of this dynamic that exists right now since Trump returned to the Oval Office between the U.S. and Mexico. Is this uncharted territory for U.S. prosecutors to not only indict a sitting Mexican governor accusing them of corruption, but continuing to claim that high-level Mexican government officials are essentially collaborating with members of Mexican cartels?
It is in terms of a governor, and this indictment, it's worth remembering, it's not just Rocha Moya, he's one of 10 Sinaloa officials, including the former Deputy Attorney General, the head of investigative police. This is a huge move against what you might call alleged entrenched Sinaloa corruption. The U.S. has gone after in recent years the former Mexican Secretary of Defense, the former Mexican police chief, who's sort of effectively the Homeland Security Chief, Garcia Luna, who was found guilty and sentenced here. So it's a continuation of an onslaught, a sort of law enforcement and judicial attack on Sinaloa that has been going on since about 2008, which is when I actually started reporting in Sinaloa.
And Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, she has had a hardened tone of her own, saying that the U.S. government is trying to undermine Mexico's sovereignty with the Sinaloa governor's charges. How does Mexico seem to strike that balance, you think? They have to preserve operational cooperation, especially in the war on drugs, but at the same time, emphasizing their sovereignty. How do you think they should do that?
I think Sheinbaum has done an excellent job so far. Under Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador before, also the Morena party that he founded, he really alienated the DEA. He made it very difficult for the U.S. to work with Mexican counterparts. Sheinbaum has to present, obviously, she has to defend Mexico's sovereignty. She can't really praise American agents running around, especially if they're acting in any way inappropriately. But she has to protect the innocence until found, proven guilty of any political figures. But she also recognizes, it's clear, extraditions have gone way up since, I don't have the numbers on me, I'm afraid, but they've gone way up since she took office. And so we're sort of back to a collaborative relationship between Mexico that we haven't seen for since the Obama administration, actually.
One of those extraditions, as you know, Malcolm, is Ismael Zamada, a guy known as Mayo, a guy who was flown to Texas a couple of years ago. So we've seen, as you point out, the steady stream of high-profile cartel figures arrested in Mexico and then sent to the United States for prosecution. The question is, does this actually have an impact on the cartel landscape in Mexico and the drug trade in general?
I think on the drug trade, no. I think it's pretty much conventional wisdom now that the drugs will continue to come, whatever drugs they are, the newer drug. The market's there, so the supply is going to form around the market, the demand. And it's not just the U.S. Drug abuse has been rising in Mexico, Europe. The cartels supply to everywhere. In terms of does it make a difference in the cartels? I think the sort of what I call the right over might approach is important. This indictment shows that, again, with all the rhetoric coming out about military strikes in Latin America, this is coming out of Washington where I am. It's reassuring to have these indictments because it shows that, again, the prosecution work is going on. Does it break the cartels? Over time, yes. I mean, we've seen it. There's progress been made against the Sinaloa cartel in the courts here. The fact that the Chapo Guzman family, who I wrote about, and El Mayo Zambada, they were the two families in Sinaloa. They are basically now almost all in prison in the U.S. or have already served their time and are actually free, but they're not going back to drug trafficking. This does work, but it's slow, and it does not reduce the violence necessarily. It does not reduce the flow of drugs, but ideally it does break down the institutional corruption. And the fact that we're seeing 10 officials who are now, at the very least, under intense scrutiny for their actions, and the pressure shows if Rocha resigns, something's happening. There's some effect.
Without a doubt. Malcolm Beach, this is a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us to have it. Of course, we'll watch to see what comes next in the saga for the Sinaloa governor. And then, of course, those two Chapo sons that are still in charge south of the border while the other two are on this side. Thank you so much for joining us again. Appreciate your time. Thank you. And we'll be right back with more.
What's the plan?
Breaking human records at this year's World Humanoid Robot Games, like the Robot Olympics, if you will. This is the second year that China has hosted this competition as it aggressively invests in its robotics industry. Here's Mike Valeria.
Some astonishing and not so astonishing feats in one of the Olympic stadiums here in Beijing.
A humanoid robot named Lightning ran the 100-meter race faster than Usain Bolt's world record. But these competitors, they don't need protein drinks, they need batteries. Here at the World Humanoid Robot Games, robo-athletes are being tested like never before. More than 2,000 robots from 16 countries are registered for this year's games. And we have kickboxing, football, table tennis, and some of these events are getting much harder.
The 400-meter race, for example, is now totally autonomous. It's reading these robots need to see the track, navigate it, and cross the finish line without anybody guiding them by remote control.
And this is actually part of the point. When a robot falls, gets confused, or manages to recover on its own, engineers get a real-world test of technology they ultimately want working outside the arena.
China's made embodied AI, which is essentially AI in a physical body, a national priority. And the government has backed research, training centers, and real-world testing as so many Chinese universities and companies have raced to build better robot bodies and even smarter robot brains. So the real competition here isn't just robot versus robot, it's how quickly China can move these machines from spectacle to something a little bit more useful. And judging by what we're seeing here, there are both some amazing achievements and a little bit more training to do.
Mike Valerio, CNN, Beijing.
And look, that last shot, it's always important to just dust yourself back up and get up again, keep playing. Thanks so much for joining us. Our coverage continues with CNN Headline Express.
Every great
When we came through, it looked like a movie scene.
Thousands of people are told you need to get out now. A dangerous fire quickly spreading. We've got the story. Plus, a manhunt is on right now for the wife of a police officer who was found dead in their home. More on this developing case. Plus,
Oh, that's unexpected.
thousands of people are told you need to get out now. A dangerous fire quickly spreading. We've got the story. Plus, a manhunt is on right now for the wife of a police officer who was found dead in their home. More on this developing case. Plus,
Oh, that's unexpected.
the shocking thing that he saw on that beach, and it had everybody running towards the water. We've got the full story for you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Brad Smith. This is CNN Headline Express. Glad that you're